A genuinely good creature feature is as good as gold dust these days, so our excitement levels are high when we finally get our hands on one. The recently released Cuckoo has tickled our taste buds because of the mysterious narrative and the creepy unnamed creatures that have been introduced. The movie tells us the story of a young lady named Gretchen who heads to the German Alps with her family, only to find that the small resort town has some sinister secrets. Her father's boss, Herr Koenig, turns out to be involved in preserving these part human, part bird creatures, and the climatic twist will leave you shocked. We have already worked on a movie explainer on our channel, but in this video we will dive deep into the physiological details of these uncanny creatures. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. What are these creatures and what do we know about their origins? This is the first question that comes to mind once you're done watching the movie, and it doesn't help that the narrative doesn't do a lot of explaining on this one. This lack of information makes the creature's existence even more mysterious, but there are some hints that indicate the potential backstory of these creatures and their overall nature. Firstly, the creatures have been described as ancient and dying out, which prompts Koenig to preserve them even at the cost of human lives. A believable theory is that the creatures are an ancient crossbreed between humans and some species of birds, and their existence is probably restricted to these regions of the German Alps only. Secondly, these creatures don't exactly have the finest survival instinct, and without the assistance of a preservationist like Koenig, they would be doomed. If they are really as ancient as this story suggests, we wonder who helped them further their species back in the day. Why is Koenig so keen on preserving these creatures? Koenig doesn't seem like someone who would go out of his way to do something that doesn't fulfill some personal interest. This makes us wonder why he works so hard in preserving these creatures in the first place. His intentions are quite clear halfway into the movie, but why he does so is never explained. One plausible theory is that Koenig is also part human and he has some kind of ties with these creatures. He may have a more human appearance, but his genetic ties could be linked with these terrifying and murderous creatures, and this prompts him to try and further the species. The other possibility could be that Koenig has some intentions of weaponizing the creatures in a way. He has already proven that he can make the creatures obey his commands to some extent, and his research on the species is underway. He might be trying to add their powers and make them a force in warfare. And this could also imply that he has secret military ties. There are a few better places to perform a secret military experiment than being away in a quiet resort town where the cops are easy to manipulate and conspiracies are easy to bury. It seems quite evident that he has been working on these creatures for quite some time, and since he planned for Alma to become one of the creatures, we assume that he has been doing this for over a decade. Maybe we will get some of these answers if a sequel is dropped soon. Do the creatures have human-like appearance? The adult creatures of these species, at best, have a remotely human appearance, but if the hooded woman is any indication, that their appearance is certainly not close enough to confuse a human. For this reason, Koenig has given the hooded woman covering clothes and hoodies along with wigs and goggles to mask her real appearance. In reality, she has large eyes, pinched faces, and a balding scalp that doesn't really have a human form. The young ones, however, such as Alma, have a more human-like appearance that is easily confused by her parents and those around her. This helps the young creatures to blend in and avoid any threats till they're adults and powerful enough. Are the creatures primarily nocturnal? If you observe the narrative closely, all the major activities of the creatures, including that of the hooded woman, take place during the cover of darkness. However, while they prefer to stalk their prey at night, they are not incapable of moving around in daytime as well. We've seen these creatures running around under the sun, and clearly they still have their powers during the day. So what makes them choose their attacks and major activities after sundown? One of the primary reasons could be stealth, as they might have night vision that allows them to see in the dark. Their instincts might be more active during the night, which prompts a greater intensity in their actions. This is also the reason why Koenig keeps his resort free of staff at night, and it also explains why he is so keen to drive Gretchen home, because he is worried about her safety in the dark. All in all, these bird-like humanoid creatures are not completely nocturnal in nature, but they certainly prefer the cover of darkness to get the job done. What is the nature of their powerful scream? The primary superpower of the creatures seen in this movie is their ability to let out a scream that has a strange effect on humans. Hearing this sound effectively paralyzes those who hear it, and humans seem to have a disorienting effect as well. Besides, there are also indications that hearing their scream ignites a short time loop that traps the humans and allows the creature to get closer to them without any resistance. However, Koenig also mentions that when trained, their song can be dizzyingly persuasive, which probably means that they need some kind of training to perfect this ability. Even though Alma is capable of letting out one of these screams at the end of the movie, it can be so that Alma is yet to master his powers, and she only managed to do so out of desperation. How do these creatures reproduce? The movie is not titled Cuckoo for nothing, and the metaphorical title is largely inspired by the nature of reproduction followed by these creatures. Just a cuckoo that lays its eggs in a crow's nest and cannot raise its own, the creatures use human hosts for the growth of their offspring up to a certain age. Gretchen's stepsister, Alma, for instance, turns out to be one of these creatures, and her mother is the hooded woman that we see in the movie. However, she has been raised in a human family who had no clue about her real identity. Thus, even though the adult form of the creature is clearly different from humans, their adolescent form is more human-like that makes it impossible for them to be identified. The reproduction process has been vividly depicted in the movie, and it is somewhat disgusting, to be honest. As part of the laying ceremony, the adult female of the species identifies a couple as her target. She then uses her hypnotizing scream to knock them unconscious and disoriented. And later on, they usually don't remember what happened. As shown in the case of the hooded woman, she squats and pulls out a lump of slimy discharge from her crotch, and it can be assumed that she inserts this gooey substance in the uterus of the woman. Later on, when a couple has a moment of physical intimacy, the male sperm fertilizes the egg of the creature and it grows undetected. The human mother is nothing more than an unsuspecting surrogate in this instance, and this is how the young ones are raised till they come of age. However, as Koenig mentions, these creatures need his help to reproduce, and his preservationist nature comes into the picture. The resort is a fine honeymooning and vacation spot for couples who become unsuspecting careers for these creatures and raise the young ones, thinking of them as humans. Is Alma still one of the creatures? What are the implications of her true identity as Gretchen? We have already spoken about how Alma has a strikingly human appearance even though she is incapable of speech just like the other members of her species. However, there are plenty of instances that suggest that Alma has all the instincts that are normal in the young members of the species. Firstly, Alma feels threatened by any other offspring of her adoptive parents. She killed her twin in the womb, and later she feels threatened when Gretchen arrives. It all changes by the end of the movie when Alma realizes that Gretchen is actually trying to protect her. The movie ends with both sisters walking out of this messy situation safely, but this says nothing about how things will be for them in the future. As for Alma, it might be a lifelong struggle for her to fight her violent instincts, and if she fails to resist her impulses, it can be life-threatening for Gretchen. Maybe this has been purposely left open-ended to leave room for a sequel, but we'd love to see how the two sisters manage to deal with this major crisis that is about to haunt them very soon. Do young members of the species require supervision when they come of age? It is quite clear that the young ones in the species do not look any differently than humans, and even their primary mannerisms and behavior have adapted to that of humans so as to blend in seamlessly. However, the adult members of the species have a distinctly different characteristic, and we don't see that so much in Alma. This is mainly because it requires some kind of involvement from the actual birth mother, which in this case is the hooded woman. Maybe proximity with the original birth giver brings in certain changes to the young ones, and they are finally prepared to leave their adoptive human families. Even Dr. Bonomo, a character introduced later in the movie, explains that contact between Alma and her biological mother is extremely important to accelerate her true abilities and physical development. The process is jeopardized by Gretchen, and Alma is never really brought before her mother. However, it is interesting to note that she is able to let out one of her powerful screams only when her mother is present nearby. The whole process of motherly supervision on reaching adolescence might also explain the necessity for a resort. This is the same place where Alma was conceived, and it provides a genuine reason to come back with the entire family. Why is the hooded woman always after Gretchen? For some reason, it seems like the hooded woman, who is one of the primary creatures shown in the movie, is always after Gretchen. From the close call earlier in the movie to the climatic moments when the creature runs after her, there is a constant attempt to get rid of her, and we might just know why. For any creature, it is a very common motherly instinct to kill anything that can potentially threaten the existence of her offspring. In this case, the hooded woman, who is the actual mother of Gretchen's stepsister, Alma, perceives Gretchen as a threat. Koenig explains it later when he says that Gretchen is competing with Alma for resources, and this makes it convenient for the hooded woman to get rid of her. The other major reason behind the hooded woman's fury toward Gretchen is that she's constantly acting as a barrier in the way of her uniting with her daughter. Do the screeches of the creature really cause a time loop? We have already elaborated on how the main ability of the creature is its screeching sound that leaves humans paralyzed and disoriented in a way. They enter a state of temporary mental coma, and it appears as though they are caught in a mini time loop for a while. There is no major evidence to suggest that something like this actually happens. It can simply be a hypnotic effect that the screeching sound has on the humans, causing them to hallucinate things and perceive a time loop. This makes more sense because if the sound indeed caused a time loop, then there would be something to break out of it as well. The effect it has on certain people does show a trace of hypnotism, and it is far more likely than a time loop effect on them. Are the creatures physically powerful? Can they be killed very easily? The creatures shown in the movie are a force to reckon with, but the threatening nature of the part human and part bird creature is not in its physical strength. These creatures are extremely agile and swift, and much like a bird, their strength lies in stealth and taking their victims by surprise. The hypnotic screams add to their arsenal, but it doesn't make them invincible, as shown in the climatic moments of the movie. Gretchen is able to land a fatal blow on the hooded woman with her blade, and she is seemingly dead after the hit. However, there can be a regenerative power involved, which can help the hooded woman recover from her near-dead situation. This would make the sequel even more interesting because it would mean that the creatures cannot be killed so easily. Other than this, the creatures are definitely faster than average humans and can potentially be stronger as well, unless they are strategically apprehended. Marvelous verdict. A creature mysterious enough to deserve a sequel. By now, it should be quite clear that there are plenty of unanswered questions surrounding this creature. Much of what we've discussed is speculative in a way, and we'd love to know more about this humanoid avian species that reproduce in the most bizarre manner imaginable. The sequel movie can actually focus on the origins and nature of this creature in more detail, and the story has enough potential to raise an entire franchise if handled the right way. Do let us know in the comments below what you think of these cuckoo creatures, and also share your thoughts on the motives of Koenig, who preserved them for over a decade. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.